أنا مرض أنا الداء ومني تأتي أوجاع.
The youth, when they have no direction, when they have no vision, when they have no future prospects, when they have no actual meaning or purpose to their life, they just do whatever they think is best. Hang about in the parks, hang about in the streets, get involved with this person, get involved with that person, end up doing drugs, end up involved in gangs and fights. And if you associate with people who are involved in this haram, who are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you yourself will also become like them. You yourself will become involved and do the things that they do. The Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said in a famous hadith, الرجل على دين الخليل, that verily a man is upon the deen of his friend. Deen al-Khalili, the deen of your friend, meaning the way of life of your friend. If you associate and you accompany and you hang about and befriend people who do drugs, people who steal, people who swear, people who do haram, people who are completely disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who have no fear of Allah, who don't care about halal and haram, then you too will end up doing those same things. And likewise, if you associate with people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who remind you about halal and haram, who remind you to pray and to fast and to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you too inshallah will be upon that path. الرجل على دين خليلي, a man, he will follow the deen of his friend. فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل. So therefore be very careful as to who you choose as your friends, and be very selective as to who you choose to accompany you and to befriend you, because you will end up taking their way. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, فَأَتَزِلُوا رِفَاقَ السُّوءِ. Stay away from the bad company, the evil company, because it will have a very detrimental effect upon you, upon your behavior and upon your future. Keep away from it. In fact, this is a principle in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. Do not even incline towards the wrongdoers, the oppressors, those who oppress themselves and those who oppress others. Don't even incline towards them. فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. For the fire may touch you. For the fire of Jahannam, it may come close to you and it may touch you. Be very careful of the company that you keep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us, if you're in a gathering, and in this gathering, and this gathering may be amongst the friends, it may be amongst family members at home, it may be in the park, in the streets, in the colleges, in the universities, at work, anywhere. If you are in a gathering and in that gathering there is haram taking place, in that gathering there are people there speaking, for example, rubbish, nonsense, backbiting, gossiping, slandering, swearing and abusing, keep away from this. Don't entertain these gatherings. Wherever there is haram, keep away from it. This is the advice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have given us. Why? Because it will affect you, it will influence you, it will influence your behavior. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَخُوضُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا, that when you see those who are engaging in false conversation, false talk, whether they're mocking the ayat of Allah, whether they have complete disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even more the case in Ramadan, because in Ramadan, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us that for the one who doesn't leave obscene speech, the one who doesn't leave backbiting, slandering, lying, gossiping, abusing, swearing, all of these things, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of you to leave food and drink. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need for you to fast. It isn't just about abstaining from food and drink. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, if you see certain people engaging, if you see this bad company, فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ. Stay away from them. Stay away from them. Don't accompany them. Don't become part and parcel of that gathering or that circle of friends. حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرِهِ. Until and unless they change the topic of their conversation or they change what it is that they are doing. So this is a word of advice. Be very wary, because the friends and the company that we keep will affect us, and it will affect the way that we behave. And don't think that yes, in this dunya you may be the best of friends, and that person who you think is your best friend, he's got your back and you've got his. But in the akhirah, the tables will be turned completely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, Ya waylata laytani lam attakhid fulanan khalila. A person, he will say, oh, woe to me, if only I had taken so and so person as my khalil, as my intimate friend. That person who was staying away from haram, that person who used to pray his salah, who used to go to the masjid, who used to fast, who used to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if only I took him as my intimate friend, and not those other people who wasted my time and wasted my life on this dunya. Al-akhillahu yawma'idhin ba'duhum li ba'din adu. Friends on that day, they will be enemies to one another. Those people who you think are your closest, your nearest and dearest, on that day, بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ, you will be enemies against one another. Ibn Kathir, he mentions in the tafsir of this verse, he said, every friendship and companionship that you have, for a reason other than for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on that day, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will end up being enemies with one another. Enemies with one another. The only companionship and the only friendship that will last in this dunya and in the akhirah and will be forever is the one that is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.